we traveled to Lisbon, Portugal to cover the Web Summit. And we had the opportunity to interview a fascinating guest, one of the main stars of this event. His name is Garry Kasparov, and he is the world champion chess player of almost all times. And he's fascinating because he tackled very, very interesting topics about artificial intelligence, about also cybersecurity, and the importance of what people, big companies, are doing nowadays with your data. This is the interview. Mr. Kasparov here with us. Thank you very much, Garry, for being with us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Please tell us a little bit about your agenda. What are you doing here in this year?
I'm here already the second year as the Avast software security ambassador. So it's the leading company in the world providing security for customers. And I think it's really a big challenge because we are living at a time where our life, by the way, voluntarily is being shifted into a flow of data. And while doing so, very often we just, we don't follow what I call elementary rules of digital hygiene. Okay. We know we have to wash our hands, to brush our teeth, to do a flu shot, but very often we simply download any apps, and we buy Alexa, for instance, without considering that there might be some consequences. And I think it's very important to just, for us just to go through some kind of elementary education, just recognizing that 90% of the threats that could disrupt or, God forbid, ruin our lives, they can be prevented if we just, follow the elementary rules and, protecting our data, so our digital health, the same way we do with our health.
From all these digital threats that we have nowadays, which one worries you the most and why?
Look, it's the variety of problems. I mean, this is obviously the threats to the data that belongs to all of us, so our data, because we can't, stop shifting this data just on the internet because we want to benefit. We want to benefit from these new devices, and we do this and that. And it's, again, many of them are so attractive. I think some of them are unnecessary, and so that's why it's a psychological challenge. Before you just download an app, think about it's like two-way street. I get something, but I sacrifice something. Nothing is freebie. So it's at the end of the day, you pay with a currency. In this case, the currency is your privacy. So that's why I think first we have to recognize that it's in many cases we are not guilty, but it's just we are voluntarily submitting data that we don't have to. But having said that, I think it's an inevitable process, and what's very important is for us to actually understand how this data can be protected, because if data is provided, if generated, the data will be collected. If data is collected, it will be stored somewhere. If it's stored somewhere, it could be attacked and hacked and could be abused. Obviously, we can try to make sure that the big corporations that are collecting this data, these Googles and Apples and Microsoft of this world, they will be facing severe punishment if our data is being hacked and misused to harm us. But we also should remember that it's the world, cannot be regulated by the rules in EU, European Union, or in the United States. There are many people, actually, about 65% of the population, that live in unfree countries. And the people in these unfree countries like Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, and I would probably add now Philippines and Turkey, with the country with very strong authoritarian leaders. In these countries, people are not safe if their data is being somehow collected by the authorities. It's not the matter of receiving unwanted advertising, but it just could be really a matter of life and death. And I think it's very important that we fight for the rights of all citizens of the world and don't divide them in category of first class or second class or third class citizens. We're no longer divided by the Iron Curtain. It's not a Cold War time where a geographical border that separated free world from unfree world. We live in a world that intertwined, so we're all connected. And we understand it's globalization, but at the same time we're trying to pretend that you can deal with data in one way, in just in the most protective way, in some parts of the world, and in other parts of the world you can ignore the fact that the big corporations are willingly sharing the data of millions of Chinese or Russians with authorities.
Wow, I didn't realize this topic of the privacy of data and the privacy of your information was that serious, because one thing is which these big companies manage with your private information. For example, when they want to promote travel destination or special food or a special fashion trend, okay, you will see it on your feed, and that's one thing. But what Mr. Garry Kasparov is talking is something way, way more serious and way more deeper stuff. You're talking a very important issue, actually, that the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, mentioned in the keynote speaking here, and it was cyber threat, cybersecurity, and how artificial intelligence is very sophisticated in terms of creating the possible new wars with this new technology. Cybersecurity, what's your take on that?
Yeah, but look, again, I'm almost, objecting, the whole notion that AI on its own could create a war. AI is a technology, it's a tool. It's neither a magic wand nor a terminator. It's not a harbinger of utopia or dystopia. As in history before, tools can be used, the most advanced tools, for good and bad. Humans still have monopoly for evil. So it's for us how we use it. So that's why instead of trying to pretend that new technology can harm us, we should look at the bad players, at those countries, at those organizations that are looking for these breakthrough technologies to advance their clandestine agenda. So that's why it's more about a political climate. It's more about the social responsibility of those who are just in charge of these flows of data, rather than about technology itself. We should not waste our time debating what happens when and if we have killer robots on Matrix or the Terminators. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not even in the next 10 or 20 years. So it's maybe it's a distant future. But right now we should be concerned about bad players, about those who, as it happened many times before, will use technology invented in the free world to undermine the very foundation of our democracy.
They told me one last more question. What will be your best advice to all these new generation that are jumping in Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and putting all their data, and they don't know what they're putting, they don't read the terms, and they just click, to be a little bit more aware, more secure?
Okay, first of all, you should remember it's a two-way street. So, and it's very important that you're just not being one who provides the data, but you will be actively involved in the process. So my first advice, participate. Very important. You should be engaged. And there are many ways of being engaged. One, you can vote. If you live in European Union countries or in the United States or Australia or Japan, you have many chances to influence your government. Make sure that your vote is not wasted. You have as someone who grew up in the Soviet Union, lived in Russia under Putin, I value this opportunity to vote because this is a way to change the government and to send a very strong message. Second is, I believe that your generation has a unique role of reinventing the spirit of exploration. I think that's the baby boomers. They enjoyed very comfortable life, and they just, they didn't want, to take too much risk. That's why for many decades now we abandoned projects like space exploration. It's not just about flying to Mars, but it's about actually finding so many great, tremendous things in this process. And I think if we can recognize that the risk or rewards are connected, and we'll use these great new technologies, so the future will be bright. We're still in control. And I believe that the future is self-fulfilling prophecy, and everything is in your hands. And if you believe that the future could be bright, you could be more ambitious, and you can find the most effective ways of cooperating with these new smart machines, that will, I believe, will make us smarter. So machines, intelligent machines, will not make us redundant. I think they will help us to be promoted.
Well, there you have it, guys. The one and only Mr. Garry Kasparov here on the Millennial Way Show. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. What a guest. I want to close this interview with some words that Garry Kasparov just mentioned. And it's actually the invitation that he is doing to these new generations to actually participate, to get involved, to actually vote, to engage in community. And why to do that? Because with all these new technologies and all these new advantage, well, we are a generation that can re-inspire the willing to explore, to find, to discover new things. And we have the technology, we have the tools, and we have the willing. So why don't we do that for the good of humankind? I hope that you really like this interview. If you like it, well, let us know. You can tell us right here. If you don't like it, well, also let us know why you didn't like it. And please don't forget to subscribe. My name is Ismael, and this is the Millennial Way Show, empowering the new generations.